Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is the place where we bring you the headlines and the latest in black news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi.
And I'm Melissa.
On today's report, threats against lawmakers are up. We share information about the Black Public Safety Alliance, and the NAACP National Press Secretary Mark Banks is here.
We remember Walter Mondale and show you how Arkansas's governor has strengthened the state's anti-abortion rules. Plus, we take a look into anti-protest bills across the nation, and we have this story. Sheriff's deputies shot and killed a black man in North Carolina who eyewitnesses say was trying to drive away.
We remember a special Bob Marley moment. Virginia governor signs bill legalizing marijuana, plus news on HBCUs, Kobe Bryant's estate, Prince, and Earth Day.
Yes, we have all of that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. Let's get it.
To me, this reeks of conflict of interest.
Do we know if he actually waved a gun? We only hear one side of the story.
This just really did make me feel good that the justice system did what they needed to.
So we're going to keep following this story, and we will have the latest for you. All right, here are your headlines for the day. Community members in Elizabeth City, North Carolina want answers after a sheriff's deputy shot and killed a black man while serving a search warrant. Protesters want to see the body cam footage, but right now, authorities won't provide it, nor will they give many details about this incident. But the Pasquotank County Sheriff has identified the man shot as Andrew Brown Jr. You're looking at a picture of him there. Family members told CNN he was 40 years old. According to a Fayetteville Observer report, witnesses say Brown was shot while trying to drive away, and sheriff's deputies fired at him multiple times. Demetria Williams lives on the same street, and she told the paper the car skidded out of Brown's yard and eventually hit a tree. At a news conference, the sheriff says a deputy was placed on leave pending a review by the State Bureau of Investigation. Biggest issue here, what I'm seeing online, people are talking about this. One, they feel like it's kind of gotten overshadowed. That, we're getting to this point where people want every single time this happens, they want it to be discussed nationally. You'll see people in that community saying, no, we want everyone to hear about this because we want to see the video, and they feel like the pressure is the only way to get this. But also, the reports coming in that say he was driving away. You know what that takes me back to? Walter Scott.
Yeah. Walter
Scott was shot and killed by an officer named Michael Slager 6 years ago in North Charleston, South Carolina. So not far, not too far at all. A witness, luckily, recorded this on his phone. Walter Scott was shot in the back. And he was running away, again, when the officer shot him in the back. We were never able to get, any kind of testimony or any type of full explanation about, what is he saying? Why did this happen? Because obviously he took a federal plea deal. A judge determined that it was second-degree murder and sentenced him to 20 years in federal prison, which caused the state to drop their state case against him because of the fact that he's already serving time federally. But he had lied and told investigators at the beginning of all of this that Scott was running towards him with a taser. And then, we get a cell phone video from a witness. It's complete otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely opposite direction. You think about this, you wonder why it's not getting national attention. I feel like it's almost hard to keep up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is happening over and over again. And our police departments across the country not sitting down saying, hey, we have a problem. Let's work on this. Or maybe say, you see what you're doing when you pull over someone that's white, how you're not shooting them, how they're running away, driving, a police officer holding onto their vehicle. Let's try not to do the same thing to those that are black, right?
Yeah, the reality of the situation is it feels like we're being hunted. That's it. That's all, that's all that there is to say about it. So moving right along, Representative Val Demings blew up at Representative Jim Jordan during a House Judiciary Committee hearing Tuesday when her colleague interrupted her as she was discussing law enforcement.
Law enforcement officers risk their lives every day. They deserve better, and the American people deserve. I have the floor, Mr. Jordan.
Lady has
what? Did I strike a nerve? Law enforcement officers deserve better than to be utilized as pawns. And you and your colleagues are ashamed of yourself.
The gentlelady will suspend and the clock will be stopped. I want to admonish members. They must not interrupt someone who has the time.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a
simply
question?
Can't shout out. If you think that someone is saying...
I agree.
Mr. Jordan, you don't know what in the heck you're talking about. You know nothing about what law enforcement officers
I know about my motive.
And you're using them as pawns because it serves your ridiculous political purpose.
Val, everyone must suspend.
The committee was discussing the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, legislation that seeks to address the surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans. Demings was criticizing an amendment introduced by Republicans that would prevent the defunding of police departments, even though the legislation does not have any provision to strip funds from law enforcement. Now, first of all, let's address the fact that Val Demings is the former police chief of the Orlando Police Department. So I would let her have her say when it comes to speaking on law enforcement. Jordan was way out of line and way out of pocket. Secondly, I'm going to move towards the bill. And what's interesting about the bill, it was introduced by Senator Mazie Hirono. She's a Democrat from Hawaii, and she introduced it last month. And ironically, she introduced it 5 days before the Atlanta spa killings. It was based on a year's worth of rising attacks against Asian Americans, which we're all very well aware of at this point. But what's interesting is who sponsored the bill, which was Mitch McConnell's wife. So the bill has been passed in the Senate with only one nay, and that was from Josh Hawley, which everybody kind of assumed was going to happen. But it's really interesting how quickly this bill was passed in the Senate, but yet we can't get any attention on the anti-lynching laws that have languished in the Senate for God knows how long. And all we see is Black death every single day.
Well, Jim Jordan, he's very much giving me a troll right now. This is the same congressman that got chewed out by Maxine Waters just last week. Was it this week? I think it was earlier this week when she said, shut your mouth. This guy, he's just giving me, not this guy, excuse me, I don't want to, diminish his role, but Jim Jordan, he's very much so giving me, he's just looking for good press right now, and Black women are not having it, and I love that for us.
All right, well, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi reacted to Tuesday's news that a jury convicted former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin of murdering George Floyd by thanking George.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice.
The speaker's remarks angered activists and commentators who noted that he did not choose to die. He was murdered, activist DeRay McKesson tweeted in response to Pelosi's comment. Pelosi later clarified her statement, tweeting, George Floyd should be alive today. His family calls for justice for his murder were heard around the world. He did not die in vain. And I just feel like over the last few days, a lot of people are taking what someone says in the moment, and you have people that want to twist it up or whatever. I kind of understand where she was going. Okay, it wasn't right word for word. It happens. But let's talk about Mark Davis with the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's talk about that situation. People got upset about that tweet. But, the Floyd family embraced it. They went public and said, we're okay with that. LeBron James's tweet that he took down. And then you have people try to twist that around. At the end of the day, I figure no matter who says something, someone's always going to have something to say about it.
But the problem with this is that people in her position are not expected to misspeak. I feel like she definitely misspoke. She got on Twitter, like you said, Romeo, and tried to clarify, but you made a mistake. Go online and say, my apologies for what I said. You rephrased what you said, and it wasn't right. I'm not upset at Nancy Pelosi, but I also just feel like you made a mistake, apologize for it, but people in her position are just not expected to, her words matter. And, it wasn't good. I cringed watching that for sure.
It was cringy.
And very tone deaf as well.
You brought up how George Floyd's families, right, through his attorneys, right, didn't they kind of opened their arms to the Raiders tweet? Right. And it reminded a friend of mine of the Botham Jean case out of Dallas. Black man who was shot in his own apartment by an off-duty police officer who says she thought that someone had broken into her apartment and she was on the wrong floor. But do you remember at the end of that trial, his brother hugged her and people were upset about that. And it was like, you know what? You got to let people grieve their own way. But to Pelosi's comment, I saw a tweet online that just getting a lot of attention, and I thought it was powerful, and I wanted to share. It's Ryan Candy's an actor, and he said, "I'm so sorry, y'all, I can't let it go, but the Speaker of the House thanking a black man for his murder is just so horrific and also incredibly telling about this country's relationship to black people." So not necessarily saying that it was bad that she misspoke, but it was bad that she doesn't understand.
Okay.
You know?
Acting Capitol Police Chief Yogananda Pittman says that threats against members of Congress have increased nearly 65% in the first 4 months of this year compared with the same period in 2020. Pittman also reiterated in testimony before the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee with oversight of the Capitol Police budget that threats have more than doubled overall from 2017 to 2020. Pittman previously testified before a House Appropriations Subcommittee in early March that threats against lawmakers were up 93.5% in the first 2 months of 2021 compared with the same period a year ago. I mean, addressing the elephant in the room, I feel a lot of us will agree that this came from Trump, you know, and there also was an investigation, which we don't have time to go into it, a new investigation about the Capitol Police on the day of the insurrection on January 6th, where a U.S. Capitol Police officer, he directed all of the units on the morning of January 6th to only monitor anti-Trump agitators, not people who were pro-Trump, only people who were anti-Trump. It's a lot. If you get a chance, look into it. But I don't know how I feel about this, because it's kind of like, I don't know, like there was an attack on the U.S. Capitol. Of course, there are going to be more threats on the lawmakers as well. I mean, I don't know what we expected.
I'd be terrified to be a politician right now, honestly, because it's just like it seems like open season on them, especially Auntie Maxine, who we have to protect at all costs, you know.
To that point about that report, what's also interesting to me is that here it is April. We're just now hearing about that in a congressional hearing. Just now hearing about, you know, a police officer who did that. And the threat that put members of Congress in, other police officers, people, you know.
Right. Yeah, and Brooke, you know, hopefully we'll get a chance to dive deep, because, like, I was surprised that it just came out days ago, and like you said, this happened in January. So hopefully we'll get to dive a little bit more into that.